Today we're bringing blooms to life with a little decoupage magic. Let's layer, seal, and create something beautifully floral together. Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting, so let's get started. Let's take some of this delivery packaging and transform it into something beautiful. I'm starting out with one of these recyclable envelopes that I did get in the mail from Amazon. So to start out, I just deconstructed the envelope to make one big piece. We do want to keep where that fold was at the beginning. And this is the outside of the envelope. So this is going to be the inside of my project. I don't want all of those markings to show, so I did grab my Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and I'm just doing a light coat of paint over the top of all of the markings. It doesn't need to be perfect. I wanted that kind of rustic look to it, but I wanted to cover as much of the black up that I could. Now, once this has dried, I'm going to flip it over, and this is the inside of the envelope packaging. And this is going to be the outside of our project. So for this part, I am going to add some more Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and I do thin it out a little bit with some water to get a really nice coat on here. We're not using the whole envelope, so I am going to be cutting off some of the edges. So I'm just getting that center part of the envelope. But depending on your project, you may have to adjust for whatever size you're doing. Now that everything has dried, here is what it looks like. This is the inside of the envelope that we're going to be using for the outside of our piece. And when I flip this over, that is the outside of the envelope, and that's going to be the interior of our piece. Now, what I'm going to do on the outside of our piece is I'm taking some Mod Podge, and I'm going to do a layer of Mod Podge over the top of the painted area on this piece. Now, while our piece is drying, I am going to take one of these napkins that I did get from Home Goods, and I'm going to prep it to decoupage onto our envelope. What I am going to do here is just remove the back two layers of the napkin. Now, I ended up needing 2 of these napkins. They are the cocktail size for this piece. Now I'm going to take that napkin and layer that on top of my painted envelope. Next, I'm going to grab a piece of parchment paper, and using a hot iron, I'm going to iron that napkin into place. We're then going to repeat that same step and do that on the other side of this envelope. We will lay down that napkin, add a piece of parchment paper, and iron it into place. Now let's seal our piece in. I grabbed my Rust-Oleum matte clear enamel, and I'm going to take this piece outside, and we're just going to spray a nice coat over the top of the napkin to seal our piece. Now let's go ahead and take an envelope, and I'm going to use this as a template, and we're going to draw out our envelope piece. So I'm using a straight edge to help me with this, and I'm just going to draw out the envelope shape and then cut this out. Now, one thing to notice here is that I did put that envelope, the bottom of it, right in the center of the packaging, where the fold already was in this packaging. So that way, when I fold the packaging, I can then cut out the envelope, and that's going to be the bottom piece of our envelope. So you can see how I fold this, and then I start my cuts. And now that we have our piece cut out, I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you what the inside looks like here. I'm just going to determine where the best part of the inside that I don't want to see. And you can see that there's still some packaging material that I don't want to see there. So that is going to be the piece that I end up cutting out for my rest of my envelope shape. And then I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw my lines and then cut out the rest of the envelope. Now that our envelope is all cut out, I am going to grab my hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue the envelope into place on the sides. We're going to leave the top part of the envelope open because we are going to make this a hanger for our flowers. So now that our envelope is put together, I am going to flip this over and add a quick little hanger so we have a way of hanging our envelope. So I'm just taking a small piece of ribbon, making the shape of a fish, and then I'm going to hot glue it to the back side of this envelope. Now let's add something pretty to our envelope. I'm taking the little piece of decoupage packaging that we cut out earlier, and I'm going to use that at the bottom of our envelope to help push out the inside of the envelope. So this will make it easier for us to add our flowers. Then I'm going to grab 2 of my flower picks. This is a lavender pick that I found at Walmart, and then another pick that I found at Walmart that's just these little yellow flowers. And all you see me doing here is removing some of the leaves that I don't want to use in this pick, and then just separating all of our flowers out. Now I just grabbed a small piece of floral foam, and I'm going to cut a few pieces off of this piece, and I'm going to add that to the bottom of my envelope so that I have somewhere to stick these flowers into. Now, once we glue these pieces into our envelope, we'll be able to start making our floral arrangement. Now I grab my little pieces of floral and we're just going to add them to the piece of foam. I did use glue when needed, but most of the time I didn't need any glue. Once we are satisfied with our floral arrangement, I did come in with some Spanish moss and filled in any of the holes. And for our final finishing touch, I did add a vintage lace bow right to the front of our envelope. And now this beautiful trash to treasure is complete. I just love how this hanger turns out. This is such a fun piece that you can make, and would be such a fun project that you could do in a group setting where you guys all bring recycled materials and make fun projects. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. And if you need a checklist to host a craft party, I have you covered. Check down in my description box below, sign up for my monthly newsletter, and get a free checklist. Browsing through Ben Franklin, I found this beautiful decoupage paper. I've been wanting to try Little Birdie decoupage paper, so this is going to be one of those pieces that I'm going to be trying this out. One of the first things that I did notice when pulling out this decoupage paper was that it was a tiny bit thicker than I expected, because I've worked with rice paper in the past, and rice paper is very thin. So this was just a little bit thicker, not much, but you could notice that there was a little bit of a difference. Now I needed to choose a surface to decoupage this piece on. And I found this piece of wood at Dollar Tree, and I just love the shape of it. And it's a little bit bigger than some of their other pieces. It was $3, but I think it was worth it. I also used one of these little inspired cutouts that I found from the Dollar Tree for this project. So for the first step, I'm going to take my crimson red from Waverly, and I'm going to paint that chalk paint around the perimeter of my piece of wood. So this is just going to frame out my piece. Now, once that paint has completely dried, I'm going to be taking my Waverly Antique Wax, and we're going to be painting that over the top of our paint, and then I'm going to take a baby wipe and wipe everything clean. I did this twice because I wanted a darker frame on this piece to match with our decoupage paper. And once we are satisfied with the color of our frame, I do set this aside to dry. Now, before we start doing our decoupage, I come in with my little zip sander here, and I'm just going to sand around the edges of my board, making sure that it's nice and smooth and removing any excess paint that may have accidentally made it onto the front. Now it's time to add some Mod Podge. I'm using the matte Mod Podge for this, and I'm going to be painting a nice coat of Mod Podge over the top of our wood piece. Now I'm going to let that Mod Podge dry, and once it is completely dry, I'm going to take that piece of decoupage paper and center it on our piece. Next, I grabbed a piece of parchment paper and I'm going to layer it on top of the decoupage paper. Now I grabbed my hot iron and we're just going to iron our decoupage paper onto our piece. This hot iron is going to activate that Mod Podge again and allow everything to stick, and by ironing it into place, we're going to be removing any wrinkles. Now I grab my zip sander, but a sanding block would work just fine, and I'm going to sand in a downward motion to remove any excess decoupage paper. And this comes off very nicely. I just love how this decoupage paper is working out. So now we have the excess decoupage paper removed. I needed to seal this piece. So I decided to do this with my Rust-Oleum clear enamel, and I took this outside and I sprayed our piece. Now, while that was drying, I took my Waverly Antique Wax and I stained my Inspire little cutout. Now I will add that to my piece. So I'm using a little bit of this Type Bond Quick and Thick glue, and I just added it to a little piece of cardboard. So that way I can flip over the Inspire cutout, and I'm going to paint the back side of it to make it easier to attach, because it's hard to get that glue sometimes on those little cutout pieces. And one of the things I like about this glue is it does dry clear, so if you get a little extra glue on there, you don't need to worry about it showing. And now that everything has dried, our piece is complete. I just love how this turns out. This is such a fun piece. I think I'm going to be hanging this in my craft room for inspiration. I would love to hear from you. Let me know how you would decoupage this piece down in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting that like or subscribe button. Thank you. So I just love these little ceramic pieces that they have at the Dollar Tree. I grabbed one of these plates and a napkin that I had in my stash, and we're going to make a fun little project that's just so quick and easy, but so much fun to make. If you're new to decoupage, this is a perfect craft to start with. One of the first steps we do when we're doing decoupage is we need to prep our material. And if you're using napkins, you want to take off those back 2 layers. And to do this, I'm just using a little piece of painter's tape, and that helps me remove those layers from that back side of the napkin. And for this piece, we only need 1 quadrant of the napkin, so I'll cut 1 piece out. Now for our medium, I'm going to be using Mod Podge in Matte. And we're just going to paint a nice coat of Mod Podge over the top of this plate. Now while we have a quick moment, I want to just say a quick hello and let you know about this fun playlist I'm a part of this month. DIY Inspirations. Our theme is Bloom and Blossoms. Our guest host this month is Marla from The Cheek Show, and I co-host this every month with Loli at Loli D's Creations. There is a link to the playlist down in the description box below, so please check out the playlist and let them know I sent you. Thank you for watching, and back to our video. Now after we've painted on our Mod Podge, and while it is still wet, I'm going to grab that napkin and I'm just going to lay that really gently over the top of our piece. And you can see that it is slightly bigger than our piece, and we want it that way. Now I'm taking some cling wrap and I'm going to put a layer of cling wrap right over the top of the napkin. And now I'm going to just lightly rub that napkin into my piece. And then once I've done that for a minute or 2, I do grab my little roller here, and I'm just going to roll out any of the wrinkles that may be left. Now, once you are satisfied, just go ahead and remove that cling wrap and let everything dry. Now, to seal our piece in, I am going to come back in with my Mod Podge and paint over the top of our napkin. Now, we're not going to worry about the overhang at the moment. Just go ahead and paint the top of the napkin, and then we're just going to let this dry. Now here's a tip to help make sure you have no wrinkles. After about 20 minutes of the Mod Podge drying, come back in with your cling wrap, and I just went ahead and I rubbed over the top of my piece and I made sure I got all of those wrinkles out. You can also use the roller here, just like I am, to make sure that there is nothing there. This makes everything really nice and smooth. Now, once that is complete, I'm just going to go ahead and flip over our plate. And we're going to take our Mod Podge again, and I'm just going to add a little bit of Mod Podge around the perimeter of our plate. I'm going to start with the top, and then what I'm going to do, and I forgot to do this right away, but I'm putting that piece of cling wrap back underneath the plate, and then we're going to take that cling wrap and actually use that to lift our napkin up and into the Mod Podge. And then we're going to just smooth everything out on that piece. Once we are satisfied with that piece, we're going to remove the cling wrap right there and then repeat that same step on the bottom part. So I'm just taking that Mod Podge and painting a nice little coat down at the bottom. And once we have our Mod Podge, we'll go ahead and lift that piece of cling wrap, and that will fold over the napkin. We'll smooth everything out, and then we'll repeat that same step on the left and the right side of our square. And now that our Mod Podge has dried completely, I do come back in with another coat of Mod Podge to seal everything in. And now for the final reveal. And wow, this piece turns out so cute. I just love how this piece turns out. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. I also would love to hear from you guys. What have you wanted to decoupage that you haven't done yet? Or is there something you would like me to decoupage so that I could show you on the channel? Let me know down in the comments below. I just love hearing from you guys, and I do try to read every one of your comments and respond back. Please let me know, and I'll make sure to try to incorporate whatever your suggestions are in my upcoming videos. And if you're enjoying these crafts, don't forget to hit that like or subscribe button. Thank you! And that wraps up today's DIYs. I really love how these pieces came together, simple, meaningful, and so relaxing to make. Let me know in the comments which DIY was your favorite. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a crafty friend. Thank you for watching, and until next time, please remember, craft more, stress less.